genre.
The Long Way Around, the weekly podcast where we review, discuss, and recap every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Scott Corelli.
I'm Cassandra Fredrickson.
And I'm Nick Jimenez.
And today on the show, we'll be discussing The Ark in Space, the Fourth Doctor's second story. And joining us is special guest Mike Jacobs, our first Patreon winner on the show. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, good. Glad you could join us.
Well, glad for long-time listener, first-time caller.
So Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, I guess, with this show and with Doctor Who and specifically Classic Who.
Well, like I said, long-time listener. I've been listening to this podcast since your first co-host, the one before Matt Smith. I'm blanking on his name, though.
Randy McKinney, yeah.
Yeah, and there were some times I was really yelling at my podcast player from the stuff you guys were saying that wasn't right. People were giving me stares. I was going, "What are you going on about?" All right, well, for Doctor Who, it started. As you know, Doctor Who first started being broadcast in the United States in the late '70s, and so I was about 12 at the time, late '70s. Started seeing it on my local PBS station. And, in fact, Ark in Space was, to the best of my memory, the first one I saw. Early. Tom Baker was probably when they first started broadcasting it. So,
that's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, started watching from there. And, of course, got fixated. So, over the years, just being a fan of it through my teenage years, and got to a point when, now this was, like I said, late 70s, early 80s, so it was before the internet was the internet. It was just, text-based thing for universities and the government people. So there were bulletin boards instead. And they were all local. So I found a number of other Doctor Who fans who were nearby over the bulletin board that I frequented. And so we decided to start a club, which we called we met in the back of a bookstore in the Tri-State Mall. So we called ourselves the Tri-State Time Lords.
That's awesome.
We just got together every few weeks.
Like a really great hockey team almost.
And we just got together to watch episodes that we could get a hold of off of video because they were hard to get to it those days if it wasn't. So that's what we did, and then eventually we actually were able to con a local PBS station to letting us actually man the phones during one of the pledge breaks while they were playing Doctor Who.
Very cool.
That's so cool.
That was an interesting experience. I don't think PBS. I think the ages of the people in our group tended to be younger than they were in other nearby fan clubs, so we weren't invited back. So, oh well. So I transitioned to keeping the club going at college, which I was nearby, and that went on for years. And then, of course, at this point we're in the late '80s, and of course things died off. Doctor Who Classic Who ended its production, so things trickled off from there. But then, of course, there was Doctor Who eventually came back. So hey, that was something.
Right. So Cass, you said that you brought some Doctor Who news for the show today.
Oh yeah. So I guess, and I don't know how reputable the Mirror is because I don't live in the UK. But Stephen Moffat was saying that he's been talking to Matt Smith, and he's like, "Oh, Matt Smith misses the role, and he might come back as the Doctor and discuss."
Yeah, well, I actually read that same article last night and was hoping that it would come up. But it was basically something to the equivalent of he was being interviewed, and it's like, so what do you think? And it's like, well, that he misses the role, and I miss having him around, and so we're open to it. And like that's pretty much the full extent of it. Like, I mean, you know, like it's something that they would not be opposed to happening. I mean, I guess it's a very different question to like, oh, yeah, we're planning on having it happening, you know?
Yeah.
I would be
fandom overreacted. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I would be very, very surprised if Matt Smith came back, but also screw it. He's gonna do whatever the heck he wants, and like we have, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, like I hope that doesn't happen, but well, whatever, you know?
Yeah, but I could also, I don't know that I would be uninterested in. Like, what if, I mean, it's not going to be that because we already know what Moffat's last season is, but like, you know, what if there's like an episode or a series of episodes or even like a whole season post Moffat where, you know, the 11th Doctor is the companion to like whatever new Doctor we get after Capaldi, or even with Capaldi if Capaldi decides not to leave.
Yeah, and like I've been dating, I mean, and that's the great thing about this show is it totally is possible, and it's happened before where the Doctor comes across a mystery or an adventure, and it just happens to cross timelines with 11. And you know, we talked about this a little bit off mic, but 11 has sort of the unique opportunity to where he has literally thousands of years worth of adventures that we haven't seen yet, and it feels weird to me for Moffat to do that and for, you know, be it the show proper or even like Big Finish to not take advantage of this huge chunk of canon that's just uncharted.
Well, that's kind of where Big Finish goes all the time, fitting into those missing slots.
Totally.
Right. Which, you know, and that's, of course, that's the other thing, Mike. It's just, you know, that's what Big Finish is for. You know, if you finished your tenure on the Doctor, but you think you have some more adventures, then, you know, show up at a recording studio in your gym jams and record like 3 new specials, you know?
Right.
With Big Finish, and they do such a good job. I'm sure they would kill to get some Matt Smith episodes. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess
weird,
the big
but
worry
it's the mirror,
is that,
so who knows?
Yeah, and I guess the big worry is that him coming back would sort of tarnish what's sort of making Capaldi's run special. You know, it's kind of like, well, do we need him to come back? You know, because I don't think the show needs it. I think the show's better than ever.
Well, there's been so much chat about really that the Doctor needs to progress more, even change. You know, there's always been all this chatter about maybe it should be a woman or a more different ethnicity or something. Rewinding to Matt Smith is kind of stalling.
Yeah, it's like taking 2 steps back, literally.
Yeah.
And it would seem kind of weirdly fan servicey, like, hey, we know people miss the young hot guy, so here he is for 1 episode. You know, it would just feel kind of tacky.
Well, for 1 episode would be fine. Just don't do it. Don't do any kind of extended thing with it.
Yeah,
unless it's Paul McGann, then we have to do it.
Yeah, yeah. If they just want to do a season that's Matt Smith and Paul McGann, I'd be down for that. That'd be fine. If that's the way that we get a Paul McGann season, I'd be fine.
After all these years.
All right, so let's talk about the Ark in Space. So a couple of things of background that I want to get through. So the Ark in Space is, of course, from the Hinchcliffe Holmes era, which is the best era of the show. Because while I think that the 7th season of Doctor Who, which is the 3rd Doctor's first season, is the strongest that the show has ever been, like dollar for dollar or minute for minute or whatever. I think that the Hinchcliffe Holmes era, which lasted about 3 years, is the overall strongest era of the show. Because, you know, it lasted a long time and it was really good. And so this episode, which is sort of the official kickoff of the Hinchcliffe Holmes era, was written by Robert Holmes, the greatest Doctor Who writer ever. And directed by Rodney Bennett, who weirdly, he directs the very next story, and then he directs an episode in the following season called The Mask of I always want to call it The
Mask of Mandragora.
Yes, that's it. I always want to call it The Mask of Majora, and I'm like, no, that's Legend of Zelda. That's not Doctor Who. But yeah, it's weird as far as special and as important as the arc in space is as a story. It surprises me that he only directed 2 other stories after this. And the thing that's really fun about this story is the writing process was really weird. So Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes, they knew that they wanted an episode that took place on a space station to kick off their new like Doctor traveling through time and space again era of the show. Because, prior to this, you had John Pertwee, who was stuck on Earth, and then toward the end of his run started traveling a little bit, but always came back to Unit at the end of the story. And so they wanted a perpetual motion Doctor again. And so they knew they wanted to kick it off with a space station story. And so they commissioned this writer, Christopher Langley, to write it. And he wrote it and they weren't super into it. So then they hired John Lucarodi to write it. And as soon as he finished his script, he went on vacation in the Mediterranean, and they got the script back, but they had notes. They liked it, but they had notes, but they couldn't get a hold of him because in the Mediterranean at the time, there was a postal strike afflicting the area. And so they couldn't send any post to him. They couldn't send him notes. He wouldn't be able to send them anything back. And so as a result, Robert Holmes just had to do a page 1 rewrite, and that's how he ended up writing the story. So he used John Lucarodi's like sort of basis and story, and then rewrote it page 1, which is really interesting, and just barely in time for pre-production to get started, while also doing all of his other script editing duties. So it was a rough start, but we got a really special episode as a result. So that's really cool. Mike, why don't you take it away and give us a recap of part 1?
Okay. So we start off episode 1 with a viewpoint from space. We're zooming in on a space station in orbit of a planet which we can guess is Earth, but there's no actual details on it, so we don't know that. Mm-hmm. But you really have to glory in the wonderful special effects of 1970s BBC and zero budget. You can almost see the wires there.
The model looks like it's made of balloons because it's just like kind of floating. It looks like somebody made a balloon animal like shaped like a space station and just kind of painted it.
And I can imagine there's just 2 screens of black with holes poking in with a light behind it for the stars as they sort of zoom in and out. It's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real sign of things to come.
All right, we then change our viewpoint to green slime mode. We're approaching some kind of person-shaped container, which then opens, and in fact, we find a person inside. Then we're back in space, pulling away. Mm-hmm. We then switch to new scene. The TARDIS is materializing in some tight space. You can see the top of the TARDIS barely clearing some ceiling molding. Everything's all white walls and ceiling. Of course, again, they're not using much special effects. They're just simply turning up the lights and the piers. No actual materialization effect. Mm-hmm. Again, you have to save on the budget. There you go. We then hear the Doctor berating Harry for being a clumsy, ham-fisted idiot. The Doctor, Harry, and Sarah Jane come out, and Sarah Jane is carrying some kind of lamp. Harry's all, I'd say, because seeing that they're actually somewhere different. Sarah Jane says they were only supposed to go on a little trip to the moon to show Harry. But Harry, again, was messing around with the controls, and so they went off course.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely a foreshadow of just Harry as a character in general.
Harry starts going on about they could sell it to be so useful in Trafalgar Square for the bobbies, and Sarah Jane tells him to stop burbling. And comments that he's feeling a little lightheaded. Doctor says it's because there's very little oxygen. He starts messing with a yo-yo, and so Sarah Jane starts giving him grief about, well, there's no oxygen. Why are you playing with a yo-yo? Doctor says he's just testing the gravity. And they're definitely in an artificial satellite. Isn't that interesting? All right, so the Doctor crosses the room and finds a light switch, so we can now again see the set in all its glory. Very space satellite, 70s chic. Everything's curved and little lights. Kind of similar to classic Trek, although it was more angular. This is all nice curves. And Harry goes over to where the Doctor is, and he starts, again, messing around with the controls. While he's over there, a hidden door then opens over where Sarah Jane is still standing. She calls out to the Doctor, but he's being a bit of a jerk. So she just goes on her own through the door. Doctor comments he hasn't seen anything like it, but he says it's made on Earth, but he can't place the time period. Sarah Jane enters the other room. Again, the walls are all white and curved surfaces and control panels. Sarah Jane approaches a control panel. Again, all the buttons and curves. On the back wall, we see a couple of futuristic tape reels. They're put there just so we, 40 years later, can enjoy the retrofuturism. Back with the Doctor and Harry. The Doctor's techno-babbling a bit, and then just sort of spitballs that the tech is from the early 30th century, maybe the late 29th. And I suppose if we wanted to, we can now start arguing about timelines for the Earth future history in Doctor Who canon.
Oh, Jesus.
Of course, I assume they weren't working off any kind of Bible back in these days, so I guess.
Well, no, I mean, all the because we've gotten several sequels now to this story in New Who. Actually, the next Ninth Doctor story we're going to cover, The End of the World, is a direct prequel to this story, which is about solar flares destroying the Earth.
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, it's more Beast Below is really connected to this story. They're both talking about solar flares. End of the World is the sun going supernova and destroying the Earth completely, not just killing all life.
Oh, okay. So Beast Below, which is also coming up.
Right. Again, it's coming up, so that's connection.
That's really weird. Both of those are coming up in this session of the Doctor's Companion. But this story is a really the modern Doctor Who showrunners. They are a big fan of this story, and they would make references to it a lot. And it kind of contradicts itself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, even just in the next season with Towns of Wen-Chiang, they talk about the 51st century and talking about known places. Even if so, the timelines don't match up. We'll just say Robert Holmes will just make up numbers just because he had to say something.
Yeah.
And we'll
as long as it sounds like the future, that's enough.
Right, exactly. And in canon, we can say,
it's kind of like Jim Kirk, kind of like Jim Kirk star dates,
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, they didn't. The star dates made absolutely zero sense until they got to the movies, when they just sat down and was like, "Okay, what actually are these?" And then they, they tried to make them make sense. I think as of I don't think it was until Wrath of Khan that they fixed the star dates to actually mean something.
Really?
Wrath of Khan, in many ways, the arc and space of Star Trek.
Yeah, Space Seed, sort of.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of movies, because once you see those sort of naval admiral costumes, those kind of stuck for the entire film franchise.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But yeah, so Mike, where do we leave off? We left off on
So Doctor was
I believe Sarah Jane was in her room.
Yes. So back in the other room, Sarah Jane notices that the door closed and she's trapped. So she's banging on the door, yelling for the Doctor. Mm-hmm. The Doctor and Harry's acting all shocked that they're in the 30th century, but the Doctor says, nope, actually it's well beyond that. He gave that control quite a twist. Then they finally notice that Sarah Jane is missing. Doctor walks over and finds the hidden door and accuses Harry of messing with the switches and tells him to find it. Harry continues complaining about the lack of oxygen, but finally finds the switch. The door opens and they find an unconscious Sarah Jane. They're laying on the ground. As they're sitting her up against the wall, the door shuts again. The Doctor goes over to the control panel, but nothing's working. He finds the oxygen supply, but it's not working either.
I love the oxygen supply because it just looks like the thing that blows in your face on an airplane.
Which is an air supply.
Right.
That's supplying you with air.
It looks more actually, I think it's looking more like the head of a blow dryer.
Right. It looks like kind of like a giant version of the thing on the airplane. It's just so weird that it's as focused as it is, because you'd think you just want oxygen everywhere. Why is it coming
There'd be vents every so often in the walls.
Right. Air conditioning. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This man needs some air. It's like a giant
Shove
fan.
his face up in the panel.
It's like those big fans they put in like post offices and
Yeah.
All right, so the doctor opens a panel and finds cut wires. He somehow identifies that the oxygen supply wires are yellow, black, and green. Goes over to behind the control panel, says the same colors, and then comes back again. So a completely unnecessary detail, but you just gotta love that these little bits is what Robert Holmes puts in stories to give it their charm.
Mm-hmm.
Harry's falling unconscious as well, and even the doctor's suffering from the air loss. He even drops his sonic once, trying to repair the wires. But finally succeeds, hits a button, and the air starts flowing. All right, Harry and the doctor then carry Sarah Jane over to some kind of bed that's over on the side wall. And as Sarah Jane is being laid down, now either it's Harry or maybe the actor, Ian Marter, being a real mensch, because he sort of holds on to the lower edge of Liz Sladen's skirt and keeps it snugly down.
I noticed that too. I was actually really impressed by that. That was really good.
I wonder if maybe there were previous takes where, whoops, it wrote up, can't film that.
Quite possibly.
All right, so the doctor goes back to fixing the cables and mentions out of the blue that maybe they were bitten, and if so, done quite purposefully. And whoever did it had a purpose, and commentary and very big teeth. All right, so the doctor is now able to open the door. Harry, meanwhile, has been working on reviving Sarah Jane, and as she starts to recover, he says, come on, steady on, old girl. Sarah Jane smiles and says, call me old girl again, and I'll spit in your eye. Really kind of cute, and this is when we all start shipping Harry and Sarah Jane.
I love
all three of them in this episode. They all have such a great where they're always like they're all picking on Sarah like she's everyone's sister, but then like the doctor and Harry have really great chemistry. I was just all about every combination of characters in this episode.
What I love about Harry is that we haven't gotten to the part where he loses his shoes yet, but he just spends the whole episode in
his socks.
In like he's just wearing his socks, but he's still got a double-breasted jacket and an ascot. Like he's so fancy, this guy.
He's just him and Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart sort of represent. From an outsider's perspective, like that very like British ideal, It's
different, but look right. What?
Yeah, like this is us at our best,
Oh, so good.
All right, so Harry quaintly suggests that a drop of brandy would help revive Sarah Jane. And the doctor says there's some in the TARDIS. I'm guessing there's a wet bar next to the food capsule machine.
Is this the first reference to there being alcohol on board the TARDIS? Can't be. That's such a stupid question to ask. I'm sorry. There's so much. This is already so long.
I don't think so. Well, because John Pertwee drank
all the time.
Yeah, the third Doctor drank all the time.
Well, he was stuck on Earth, Scott.
I imagine since the fourth Doctor has proven to have like such a sweet tooth, he probably doesn't in canon drink. Although off camera, Tom Baker drink enough for every Doctor. But I imagine that the fourth Doctor doesn't drink much, and so the alcohol stock on the TARDIS, I imagine, came from the third Doctor.
This is from back when I drank.
Yeah,
right,
he was
anything left.
He was really into some quality liquor.
All right, so the Doctor and Harry return to the original room where the TARDIS is, and they see the weirdest chandelier dropping down from the ceiling, and it shoots at them like a giant bug zapper. Harry, when jumping away, somehow leaves one shoe behind, and it gets properly toasted. And the Doctor and Harry are now hiding underneath the table.
Word of advice: don't wear loafers to your space adventures.
Well, he was kind of tricked. He wasn't dressed for her. Didn't have a chance to dress properly for the adventure.
This was him dressed for going to sleep.
Back in the other room, Sarah Jane calls out to the Doctor, having heard the scuffle, but then lights behind the bed start flashing, and she gets drowsy, lies back down, and then fades away. Doctor goes back to testing the bug zapper with his hat, which gets zapped. Harry yells back to Sarah Jane to knock him out, but of course, she's gone. Somewhere else, Sarah Jane wakes up. A voice says, "Welcome to Nerva." So we finally identified the place. It tells her she has 5 minutes before processing. She'll hear a message from the High Minister, and then they'll begin the radiation. Doctor tests the zapper with a metal pointer, but no zap. So he determines that the zapper only shoots organic things, but they're safe under the table.
Why would they make this? What is the purpose of this thing on the ship?
Then we see the most amazing thing. The Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver as a screwdriver. He's undoing a bolt of the table. I think it's the first time we've seen him doing that since the War Games.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back with Sarah Jane. She's acting all drunk, laying there on the Tranquilla couch, hearing a message from the High Minister, who just so happens to be a woman. Doctor and Harry are sliding the table around to the other side of the room where all the controls are. Doctor tries to pull the control lever down with a scarf, but that gets zapped. Harry says that he could hit it with a cricket ball, so amazingly, the Doctor pulls one out from his pocket. So, a little foreshadowing of the Fifth Doctor, maybe? Harry very awkwardly throws the ball, but that also gets zapped, because rubber. The Doctor tells Harry to throw his remaining shoe while he makes a dash for the switch, hoping it isn't double-barreled. And they're successful.
A proto reference to Smith and Jones. Another adventure where, well, this time the Doctor loses both of his shoes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
On the platoon of Jadoon on the moon.
Yeah.
All right, having turned off the zapper, they both get up from behind the table, and we get the hugest Tom Baker smile. He's putting his scarf back on. The Doctor comments that it was made by Madame Nostradamus, made for him, and she was a witty little knitter. Harry's bemoaning not having any shoes left. So back over with Sarah Jane. She's getting gassed.
Mm-hmm.
Then Doctor and Harry are back in the room which he disappeared from. He's opened up the bed and sees circuitry underneath and says it's a short-range matter transmitter. She couldn't have gone far. So the Doctor and Harry leave the room and go to the outer ring of the satellite. Start going one way around, and they get to a door, and a loud voice yells out, "This is a sterile area, keep out." Definitely a BAFTA Award performance by Peter Tuttingham, who played all the voices of computers in BBC Sci-Fi in the 70s and 80s. Anyway, the door opens anyway. So much.
He was the voice of the computer in Faulty Towers. Sorry.
Yeah, IMDb him. He's been in a little of everything from that era, especially Blake 7.
Nice.
All right, and then suddenly we get another green slime point of view shot of Harry and the Doctor, and then we see green something quickly slips away off the walkway and down out of sight. Harry says he saw something, but the Doctor is doubtful. But there is a green slime trail left behind. They go on to the next door. They go into some kind of decontamination chamber where they get zapped with yellow light, and then they move on to another room where we see the area where Sarah Jane was processed. Looking around, the Doctor figures out it's a cryogenic repository because there's a room labeled for plants and animals, and a microfilm store of all human knowledge. And it's in a pretty neat filing cabinet with the numbers all stenciled over the front of the drawers. I think you can get it at IKEA.
The cryogenic room, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were reusing a lot of stuff from Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like that set, I think.
Like they just lacquered over it and repurposed it.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, the odds of that actually being true, like where they just like stored that set for 4 years, is probably none.
It's a bit long to store a set.
Yeah, right, and especially knowing the BBC, who are just like, who's ever going to watch this again? Wipe it, like
torch it.
Yeah. So I imagine it's not, but it does seem like they're maybe using similar blueprints or something, like they're repurposing blueprints or something like that, because it looks a lot like that set.
You think maybe they just have like a template, like a blueprint template, like, hey, this is kind of our go-to thing, and then you just kind of, you add some zhuzh depending on the story.
Or maybe it's just the same set designer people who just, they're just union people working for the BBC.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Time to build a space satellite. Well, what do we got?
Making a new wall for these boys. We're just going to use what we do. That's not. Make it again.
Somebody asked corporate, did they wipe that episode? They did? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and just read
so no one's ever going to see it again. Oh, well,
Uh,
All right, so they're wondering, well, what's the purpose of all this? Harry suggests it's a kind of lifeboat. But then, where are all the people? Then on cue, magically another door opens. Doctor and Harry walk through and see rows and columns of those people-shaped containers. Harry says they're dead, but the doctor says, nope, they're in cryogenic sleep. But Harry opens one up and says, dead as a door knocker. Now, that seems a little funny. We Americans say dead as a doornail. But of course, what the hell is a doornail anyway? Door knocker is a thing, so I think of the British statement actually makes a lot more sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. I know what a doornail. That's weird.
Doors have hinges.
Yeah, they have hinges. I
Mhm.
never really thought about that saying.
Well, you
before.
got to nail the hinge to the wall, so maybe
That's true.
There's
Maybe,
probably a reason.
I bet it's been around for so long. I bet it has something to do with like nailing something to like a person's door, like they did in like the 1700s. You know, they're like, oh,
God.
we have news.
Martin Luther and his treatise.
I'm
I
trying
thought
to
it
figure
was
out-
because they
Stuff
like.
that.
I thought it was because they like nailed the coffin shut.
Different kind
with
of door.
doornails?
That's a different,
Yeah.
definitely different thing.
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just spitballing.
Okay, I mean,
Well,
There's
think we know we're
vampires. You
gonna-
got to nail the coffin shut.
I think we know what we're going to Google after this.
fair enough.
All right, then it's Tom Baker's turn to try out for his BAFTA, and he goes on this bit of a soliloquy about the resilience of humans. All right, Harry's still poking at bodies, but he's saying no, he still thinks they're dead, and suggesting here's what happens when people are in a coma. Because remember, Harry is a doctor, but then the doctor explains, nope, they're in total suspension because they're going to be sleeping for thousands of years. All right, wondering why, Harry suggests that maybe there's some kind of global catastrophe, which the doctor agrees. But then they notice some more green slime over on the edge of the room. And then it's a bit of a non sequitur. The doctor suggests they check out a few more beds, make sure that everything's okay. So Harry walks along a bit, looks at one more intently, opens it up, and it's Sarah Jane. Closing credits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, because they see Sarah Jane, and then he is like, "Oh my God, it's Sarah!" And then he's like, "Oh well." The doctor comes over. He's like, "Well, there's no helping her now." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Unless he's like, even if we had a resuscitation kit, like I don't know if it would work." And he's like, "Well, what does it look like?" And he's like, "I don't know, kind of like an oxygen tank." And so he starts rummaging through closets, and then opens one, and then a big bug creature. Like
The greatest cliffhanger.
You know what? I think there may be several different versions of where they cut off episode 1. The one
Oh.
I'm watching ends with them finding Sarah Jane, and part 2 starts with replaying that little bit, with them walking up and finding Sarah Jane. But I was reading I think some other Wikipedia entry that was also doing their own summaries, and they end with after Harry finding the giant bug.
yeah,
So I think there's slightly different versions out there.
interesting. I watched the special edition DVD version. Is that how Cass and Nick, is that how yours ended?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, the version I watched ended with Sarah Jane.
Really?
Huh.
Interesting. Well, either way, either one is a good cliffhanger. One of my notes actually for this episode was the fact that, like, wow, you'd think that the Sarah Jane thing would be the cliffhanger, and then they throw this cricket monster thing.
Yeah, the bug.
Yeah.
Which is so much better.
Yeah. Well, and it's better because of how it's how
How it resolves.
it
Hello.
resolves. Oh,
Welcome to the Ark in Space.
yeah.
All right, for this first episode, I really want to give Ian Marter some real props for his performance. I mean, he's appeared in a few scenes in Planet Spiders and a few scenes in Robot.
Mm-hmm.
But here in Ark in Space, he's jumping with both feet. Finally, he's there full time. And
Both
for the
shoeless feet.
both shoeless feet, yes. And for the bulk of that first episode, Sarah Jane's sidelined. She barely appeared, so it's mostly just Tom Baker and Ian Marter acting against each other for the whole episode. And he really goes for it full force there.
Yeah. No,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Is Harry the first case of like them recycling actors to be companions?
Right,
Because he
because he
shows
appeared
up
earlier
in Carnival of
Carnival of
Monsters.
Monsters.
Yeah,
Right.
and he's basically the same character, but like
Kinda, yeah.
he's fake. But then he's like, "Oh, I work for Unit." So I can't think of any other instance before that.
The only other
Well,
one
there's
that
only
I-
a dozen actors in England, so
Right.
there's not a
Yeah,
few.
I think
Martin
it's the
Freeman
first
hasn't been born
instance.
yet.
I think it's definitely the first instance, and really even after this, the only other time I can think of is like with Martha, playing
Right.
her own cousin in the Torchwood finale, and then yeah, being.
I'm sorry,
introduced
what?
as Martha. Yeah. She played her own cousin in the second the season 2 Torchwood 2-parter.
That wasn't Martha.
She shows up.
No, that's not Martha. That's Martha's
She
cousin.
dies.
She dies. Yeah.
Martha Jones
Yeah, Martha Jones.
Her
Died?
quote unquote cousin.
dies in Torchwood.
No. The Torchwood 2-parter at the end of season 2 of Doctor Who.
Oh,
The
that
one
one.
where the Cybermen and the Daleks fight.
Oh, okay, that one. Yes.
Yeah,
I've seen
there's
that.
a lady that works for Torchwood who is played by Freema Agyeman, and then in season 3 she's introduced as Martha Jones. And
Oh, okay. I
then
thought you
says,
meant like
that was my cousin. My cousin was involved in. My cousin, who looks exactly like me, was in that
Was
whole
killed.
Torchwood thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I thought you were saying those clips I saw of Freema Agyeman in Torchwood, she was playing like, Abigail Jones or something. I was like,
Oh,
what the-
no.
Because I've never seen Torchwood.
She'd already played Abigail Jones or whatever that character's name was. Whatever her cousin's name was. Yeah, no, I agree. I think Harry is really great. I mean, I think he's really great here, but I think it's because Robert Holmes really gets him and understands the character and how to play him off of the Doctor just right. And I think that other writers don't understand really. And at a certain point, I think they just sort of wipe their hands and they're like, okay, I mean, I like this character, I get this character, but no one else does. So we'll just stick with the Dr. Sarah Jane dynamic and just let that happen. But he's great while he lasts. I think he's only in this first season though. Of the Hinchcliffe Holmes era. Where does he go out at? What episode is it?
The
Terror of the Zygons, I think.
yeah, Zygons. I couldn't remember.
Oh,
what it
right.
was.
That's right. Because that's the one where they go back to Earth. after
Yeah.
their war.
Well, Scotland.
Well, I mean that is Earth.
it's
Scots, they
not.
may disagree.
But yeah, so that's I think he's a really fun character. I like how like kind of masculine, I mean, as far as like British masculinity, like that he brings to the show, but like also this sort of charm along with it, where he suffers from some like misogynistic tendencies, but he's also super apologetic about them.
Mhm.
Like every time he does something bad, he's just like, "Oh yeah, no, that was sorry." Like it's
He's just kind of a regular dude, which is like a really cool kind of like energy change for the show.
yeah.
Where like, because like Tom Baker is sort of the least ordinary dude to ever live, and and then here comes Harry. Who's like, oh, hello, go ahead, what's going on?
Yeah. He's really got that "what's all this then" charm.
Yeah, no, he's totally like, what's all this then?
Yeah.
And like, and he's holding his own in terms of like, like, oh, I think that this was some sort of arc, and even the Doctor's like, no, not bad, Harry. Hey.
Yeah. No, it's good. I really like him a lot. So tell us about part 2, Nick.
I will, but first, I've been thinking about this all night. Young Elizabeth Sladen, spitting image of Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
I never really thought about that before. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was watching this and I was like, oh my god, like if they ever do like a weird like sequel to An Adventure of Time and Space, what about this era? They should totally get Mary Elizabeth Winstead to play Elizabeth Sladen.
Yeah. Holy moly! The only problem is that she's like a foot taller than Elizabeth Sladen.
Oh, right? Yeah. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, tall drink of water.
Yeah, she's very tall, but Elizabeth Winstead, very petite, very small.
Oh man, I just saw 10 Cloverfield Lane again. She was so great in that.
Yes, she is.
So anyway, so the insect falls to the floor, and it's obviously been dead for an extended period of time. We're not really sure. The Doctor finds a medical kit, and there's like a sleepy pallet. And
I love
and
the medical kit. I love the medical kit because it's this clear orange plastic box
Yes.
And he's just like, what do you think this is, Harry? You think this is like a med kit? And Harry's just looking at it like, I have no idea.
No.
There's a bunch of balls in here. I think there's a gun thing. I don't know what this is. Like
but also Harry's also pretty hardcore already. He opens a closet and a giant bug falls out, and he just steps aside and goes, "Huh, check this out."
Yeah.
It's like it's been flying around time and space for a while now.
A stiff upper lip.
Well, I guess it comes from working for UNIT.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, he's a medical doctor, so I imagine stuff like this is kind of just you can't. I can't help but think that Harry probably has sort of a scientific mind about some of this stuff, where he's just like, oh, a dead thing. Like, I would love to dissect this thing and figure it out because like I just imagine he would be like that. Obviously, he wouldn't really be able to because, as the doctor pointed out, the thing is mummified. It's been dead for so long. So,
and he grew up in post World War II London. He's probably seen some really crazy stuff.
That's probably true.
It's nothing. So they revive one of the occupants in the little pods, and her name is Vera. She's the first med tech, and she demands to know what the hell these two English guys are doing on her ship.
Well, she wakes up and she stretches her arms out, and is like, gimme, like she wants something. And they're like, I think she wants something in this box. So they like kind of like push the box toward her, and she pulls out the gun and then shoots herself in the heart. And Harry's like, what is happening? Like Harry's freaking out. And the fourth doctor's just like, it's fine. She obviously knows what she's doing. And I'm like, is it obvious that she knows what she's doing?
Guys.
And we got to think, okay, what if no one else was there and things were coming back into operations on schedule as they were supposed to? There wouldn't have been someone there to hand her the medical equipment. Was she supposed to be revived enough to go walk across the room and get it herself?
Yeah, right. I know. Exactly. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
This does not seem like the most convenient resuscitation cycle.
So they tell Vera that, hey, our friend got cryogenically frozen accidentally. Can you please like revive her? And she's like, oh, sure. And then while she's doing that, she's like, yeah, solar flares kind of messed up the Earth ecosystem. So the government picked a select group of humans, and this is called the nervous station. And so we're up here cryogenically frozen for 5,000 years. And then we're going to send 100 of our youth back down to the Earth to make out with each other. Sorry. No. And then the doctor's like, well, I got some bad news. You've actually, some alien sabotaged your junk, and you've actually been, you overslept by thousands of years. And so she's like, oh, I have to go wake up Lazar. And he's also going by the name of Noah, but I will never call him anything but Lazar. Yeah, okay, can we start talking about okay, well, never mind, because the best is yet to come, but I want to talk at some point about these people's names. So there's another power failure. The doctor goes to check it out, and he finds a large green, like, pupil larva grub monster in the solar collector, just sucking on the solar energy. I mean, once again, it looks like a Sid and Marty Krofft monster, and it's really terrific.
It's made of bubble wrap.
Bubble wrap.
Yeah.
Bubble wrap, which was a technology that no one really knew about at this point. So they could it wasn't widespread enough for anyone to know what it was. So they were like, yeah, let's use this new cool thing and make a creature out of it. And then shortly after this, like, bubble wrap was everywhere, and
became the tools of office pranks everywhere.
Right, and everyone just knows this story as the one with the bubble wrap.
Exactly.
Oh man. So Lazar doesn't like that these people are stumbling around and contaminating their genetic pool, which I guess is somewhat, it's like, well, this whole point is that we're clean from all of the stuff, and so he goes to the control room and he stuns the doctor.
Well, I think did you skip over the part where Vera is reviving Sarah, and she says, they're like, so is this going to work? And she's like, well, she'll either survive or die.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Cool.
She's like, I mean,
that's kind of
some you lose some.
That's kind of our deal, no matter what, though. If you think about it.
Yeah. She'll either survive or she'll die. Oh man.
Yeah. So she notices. So while after reviving Sarah, she notices that another one of their crewmen, Dune, is missing from his weird pod, and Lazar, of course, blames this on their quote regressive interlopers. I'm kind of into someone else calling the Doctor primitive and regressive. I find it like kind of a cool like turning of the table, you know, because so often the Doctor sort of has the genetic hierarchy down.
Well, of course, Harry's reaction to that comment, I'm not regressive, I'm a naval officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screw you. So Lazar goes in to make sure that the Doctor hasn't like mucked anything up. And he is, I love this. The wiki that I'm referencing from says that he is accosted by the giant bug monster. Hey, what time is it? So it touches Lazar's hand, and like Lazar like falls, he's unconscious. Harry and Sarah find the stunned Doctor and revive him, and then they're escorted back to their to the main room by Lazar, but he's like keeping his hand hidden, like nothing happened. And they're like, okay. So Vera's just reviving people like madness now, and they revive someone named Libre. Was it Libre? Libre. Who's freaked out by Lazar and can tell that something's wrong. Because he starts to act weird, and he's like, no, the revivals, stop reviving people because, and then they're like, well, no, we Dune's missing, and he's like, I am Dune, and he goes, okay, well, something's up. So the Doctor convinces Libra to go after Lazar and stop him. Then they examine the missing Dune's bubble, and they find this, like, I first thought it was like a snake skin, right? But it's a weird egg sac. And they're like, oh, whatever did this laid eggs inside of Dune's body. And then I guess the alien larvae absorbed Dune's knowledge. And then, meanwhile, this is going on, Libre confronts Lazar, and he's like, I can't, why are you acting so strange? And he's like, you're a fool, and then kills Libre. And then
that scene is really frustrating to me because this guy is like, don't make me shoot you, and he's just like walking toward him and is like, he's just like, don't make me shoot you. He just keeps saying it over and over again. And then,
he's just tech support. He's not a security officer.
Yeah, I know, but it's like,
never really used a gun. It's just,
this guy's obviously coming to kill you, and like you can't defend yourself. And he just takes the gun and then shoots him immediately. And I'm like, man, what a waste.
Now, I think this may be like a record shortest performance. I checked the time codes. Libre first appears at 1909, and he's dead by 23:55.
Oof.
Just shy of 5 minutes.
Oh man.
Poor Libre.
Well, I think it's like the equivalent of like Captain Kirk being possessed by this weird alien, and then some red shirt's like, I can't do it, and he's like crying, and Captain Kirk's like, you're dumb.
The Doctor had dropped a comment about how human society had become very very
like specialized,
layered, specialized, yeah. And so, tech support really doesn't know how to use a gun, isn't really emotionally conditioned to use a gun, especially not to shoot his commander, even if he is acting wackadoo.
Well, he could have at least stunned him. We know that it has a stun setting. You have at least tried.
Like, but then the story would have ended in part 2, Scott.
No, because all you do is you show that the Weirin are not susceptible to the stun setting. So he shoots him with the stun setting. It does nothing. He takes the gun, then he shoots him.
Yeah.
But at least then he tried.
I thought you said this was the greatest era of the show.
It is. Absolutely.
Well, telling. That's all I'll say. And so with Libre dead, we noticed that Lazar has fully started his metamorphosis into a Sigmund and the Sea Monster.
Bubble wrap.
Thus ends
no, not the bubble wrap.
Bubble wrap, no.
And thus ends part 2.
Can we talk about the Starfleet uniforms?
Each shoulder, it's a different color code. Yeah.
I'm digging them.
Yeah. I love that.
I miss the all white of like, old Battlestar Galactica and like this and like the first Star Trek movie. I really miss like the weird Bee Gees like
jumpsuits.
yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, no, it is really cool. I even like I even like the way that it's it has that like top flap on it with like the arc of the color from their shoulders across it, but it's like a different piece of fabric than the actual like jacket part. I don't know, the whole thing. I think it's a cool design. I mean, bell bottoms notwithstanding.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
And
did you notice
70s.
the bell bottom?
Yeah. Man, the 70s did not understand that the bell bottoms were not going to be around forever.
I don't know.
one
They
could
came
tell.
back when I was in middle school.
They're called bootcut now.
That's true. There was kind of a bell bottom revival in like the 90s. I feel like I remember.
Weren't they called flares though?
Yeah, they're called flares. They weren't as outrageous.
Right.
They weren't truly outrageous.
They weren't truly.
Well, there's the scheduled 20-year retroactive style thing. So
Yeah.
in the 90s, they're into the 70s.
That's true.
We're all looking back at the 90s now.
It's true. I'm waiting for that 90s show. In the 70s we had Happy Days, and in the 90s we had that 70s show. So there needs to be a show set in the 90s.
Oh my god.
We're overdue for that.
It's like the worst show.
And it's called Replay Friends.
Oh man. So tell us about part 3, Cass.
All right. So, Lazar / Noah / Bubble Wrap. He pulls out his hand and it's covered in green. And I love how progressively through this episode, he just, every time you see him, he's like more and more covered with bubble wrap. So there's this, like, apropos of nothing, this message starts playing from the High Minister that we hear in the first episode. And it's like a 5-minute monologue. And she basically is just like extolling the virtues of like their mission and like save humanity and blah, blah, blah from the ashes, blah, blah, blah. And it's actually like, I really like how this episode, we get a sense that the Doctor and like this era is super about humanity. So it's super reflective of like New Who. And yeah, I don't know. I really like it. If you're interested in like listening to like the Doctor's monologue from the first episode and this one, it's really telling about how I think Robert Holmes views this like his Doctor. And it's really inspirational. This was like a
very
good
Churchill World War II feel to it.
It was a good episode to watch after this week with all this nonsense happening.
Yeah, like the
Definitely.
Fourth Doctor like has a real love for humans, and like the whole episode is sort of it. You know, there's a reason we keep bringing up Star Trek. Is it really does have that Gene Roddenberry hope of like, no, like you know, what if we did get it together, and what if we could do this, and like, but there would still be problems. You know what I mean? It is very reminiscent of that kind of style of storytelling.
So we cut back and forth from the Doctor and Sarah Jane and Vera and them like waking up people, and we get this thing that I call man versus bubble wrap, which is like like Noah is still human and he's the leader of this expedition, but he's also becoming this weird bug thing. So he's like imagine if you have a sock puppet and the sock puppet's trying to attack you. This is what this guy is doing with bubble wrap hand.
Oh no, he's just fighting the horrible urge that every human has to pop the bubble wrap. Gotta pop the bubble wrap.
I know. I was like, dude, just cut your arm off if you're that bothered. Something. 30th century medtech. So the speech ends and he like struggles. He has this weird struggle, and he comes over at the comms and he's like, we gotta bypass all the safety stuff and wake everybody up as soon as possible. And he kind of he pulls like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. Like he's trying to talk to Vera and tell her to take command and like wake everybody up, and then he reverts to what we find out are called the Weirin, which are these giant space bugs, and they he's like started tapping into their like race memory, which we find out more a little bit later. So the Doctor and Vera go to kind of talk to Noah, and Harry and Sarah are left to wake everybody up because Harry's seen this done exactly twice and he knows what he's doing. So they go to talk to Noah, and we get this really awesome shot of this, what I presume is a guy in a sleeping bag covered in bubble wrap crawling on the floor. Like,
it was amazing.
I love this story so much. But they go to talk to Noah, and they can't really reason with him. And they try and like zap him with, I don't know, stun guns and bug zapper things, and it doesn't really
fusion
work.
pistols.
Yeah, it's weird. It's got like a claw on the end, and it's like there's this really awesome scene where there's like a shootout in a hallway, but it's all like weird lights and lasers and stuff. And we go back, and there's these two tech guys that they wake up. We talked about them, right? Yeah. So they're really cool.
Lysett and Rogan.
Yeah, they're really. It's super 70s. Like, again, Rogan has like his uniforms open just a little bit, so there's like really weird like 70s chest hair going on.
And very PGs.
Yeah. So the Doctor tells Harry to dissect the creature to find any weaknesses, because they still have the mummified big bug in the main room. So the Doctor peels away this, what I think is like an eye membrane, basically, and he hooks it up to the computer, and he's banking on the fact that because these things have like psychic connection with each other and whatever, that he will hook up the eye to the computer and he'll be able to see what killed it, basically. And the first time I saw this was before Pacific Rim came out, but now afterward, basically the Doctor drifts with this piece of like space bug because the computer can't handle it, so he's like, I have to connect my own cerebral cortex and see what happens. So he drifts with a kaiju. He drifts with a space bug. And while the Doctor's doing that, the bubble wrap slug man gets Lysett, and
another short performance. I clocked him in at 8:20, out at 15:19. He got about 7 minutes.
So the Doctor finds out that the initial bug that we find in part 1 got zapped by the organic zappy
it's a bug
chandelier thing.
Apparently.
Yeah. But it like cuts the lines first and then crawls into the cryo chamber and infects our friend Dune. So that's what they need to basically get enough electricity. Like the stun guns aren't enough. They need to get enough of a zap to kill the bugs. So the Doctor uses the the transmat beds to send people into the control room, and then there's a power failure and the oxygen's cut again, and all of these all of the grubs that are like grossly wandering around are kind of getting into position. And the Doctor says that, oh, well, if they're bugs and they turn into flying things, they obviously have like a pupal stage. So he goes down into like the bowels of wherever the solar things are to go turn the power back on. And he gets down there, and I think it's really I love the special effects in this because you see like like a foam, like a giant foam, like to scale chrysalis, but in the back, just like on the black background is like these felt gray like things that are painted onto like it's supposed to indicate that there's a lot of these things, but it's just like, oh, this weird gray things floating in blackness. So the doctor's down here and he is looking around trying to get the power back on, and he turns around and Noah is just about to turn into a bug. He has like one section of his face and it looks like Two-Face in like the Dark Knight, and he's like grimacing and then it turns into the bug. And then
I'm thinking that he wasn't actually seeing his face, but it was more like the psychic projection.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay.
I thought it like his face literally was just like, "Arr!" And then he turned into a bug.
So anyway, so that takes us to part 4. And part 4 is, it begins with Vera shooting the Noah bug, and so that the doctor can get out of there. And then the Noah bug is like, kind of like, bowed down because he got shot. So he's like kind of on its, whatever his bug knees are. I don't know. And he's basically sort of explaining what's going on and why the Weirin are doing this. And he said that the humans destroyed like the Weirin's world, and that wasn't cool. So now it wants what the humans have, which is this ark, and it's going to take it over. And he explains that the way the Weirin work is that on their home world or whatever, they used cattle, and so the Weirin sort of take over the cattle. And then they sort of took the form of the cattle, much in the way that Alien rules in the Alien franchise is like the facehugger goes on like a cow and then it gives birth to like an alien cow. And like if it does it to a dog, it gives birth to like an alien dog. If it does it to a human, it's sort of a humanoid alien, which is why you get the aliens that you do, that we all know and love. And so that's basically the Weirin works under the same rules. And they're like, yeah, no, now that we are going to use humans, we're going to be more intelligent than ever. And we're just going to like take over the whole universe. It's going to be awesome. And it's all because you guys suck. And
Of course, if now humans survived past the solar flares and were out colonizing the galaxy and out there long enough to then, destroy the Weirin homeworld, kind of suggests the whole Nerva project was kind of pointless.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it basically shows that they were just kind of forgotten. And that you have to wonder that if they went back to Earth, what would be there on Earth.
It actually comes up next episode.
Right. No,
we'll save it for that.
But yeah, so it's very interesting. So then basically they say like, okay, so if we're going to stop the Weirin, we need to take control of the cryogenic area. But they've shut down the whole space station, and the only way to get through is through the air vents. Well, no one can fit through an air vent, and then everybody just kind of like looks at Sarah, and she's like, "Oh man, why do I have to be so petite?" So she has to. She starts die-harding through the air ventilation system with the power plug sort of like tied around her waist, and she's like crawling through this. It's like a triangular air ventilation system. It's really weird. But she's like crawling through there, and they're sort of like telling her which direction to go to get to the place where all the people are sleeping, and the doctor is there waiting for her to get the power source. And so they're basically trying to take control of the cryogenic system by like bypassing the stuff that the Weirin have in control, like the system. They're all sort of like hanging out in this shuttle. They're like, okay, so we'll use the shuttle power to do this, and then we'll bypass them, and then they won't have control over that, and then we'll have all the cards, and they won't have anything to deal with. So that's the plan. So they're going to do that, and then they succeed. And there's this really great moment where Sarah is getting really close to the doctor, but she keeps getting stuck. And she's like, I can't do it. And the doctor's just like, I knew you would fail. He's like, just like a woman to fail. You
I know,
stupid,
so
you,
mean.
you stupid woman. I knew no one like you could ever do this. And Sarah Jane is like, I'll show you. And then gets out and then like won't let him help her and stuff. And then he's just like, it worked. And she's just like, you're jackass. It's really great. It's one of my favorite like doctor companion moments, I think. Just because like he's like, I know she can do it. She just doesn't. She needs to be angry and get through it. And so he makes her mad at him so that she'll do it. It's really great. I love that. So then the doctor's like, all right, well, we have all the cards now, Noah, buddy. So, bug or not, you should probably just give up. And he's like, well, I'll just let you all go if you are willing to give up all of those people. I mean, what do they matter, right? You guys are alive. They're not even awake. Like, just let us have them, and we'll let you, get out of here scot-free. No problem. And the doctor's like, well, I think there's some human in you. And so he starts talking about, like the sun on your face and the grass and fields and all this earth stuff. And
good, strong British whiskey.
Yeah. And Noah seems unmoved by all of this. And he's like, nope, I'm all wearing now, so whatevs. Don't worry about a thing. And he's like, all right. So the doctor's like, okay, so now we're going to trick the Weirin into the shuttle, and then we're going to send the shuttle off. So because they have to get to the shuttle to get control of the cryogen people. And so they trick them, and they get them into the shuttle, and everybody else gets out of the shuttle, and they lock the shuttle. But they have to, because the only way to send the shuttle off is either inside the shuttle or manually on these things on the outside legs. The doctor starts turning them all on, and then Rogan's like, you know what happens when you turn the last one on, right? And he's like, yeah, you need to get out of here and be safe. I'm gonna get blown up when the shuttle takes off, but that's no big deal. And then Rogan pulls, in the second Bruce Willis reference of this story, pulls Bruce Willis from Armageddon and just punches the doctor and drags them away. And then he's like, take care of my daughter. And then, sends the shuttle off and blowing himself up in the process. And so like the shuttle with the Weirin go off, and then Noah in the shuttle as a bug is like, you know what? Let's just blow up. So he blows them up, because there was a little more human in him after all. And everything seems cool. There's no more Weirin on the ship. And the doctor, Vera, is going to start waking all of the occupants up.
He was human after all, Scott.
Yeah.
My favorite Daft Punk album.
And he starts, so they start waking everybody up, and she's like, I just don't know about, Earth, and I'm worried about how that's going to work out. And the doctor's like, oh, no, it's cool. I'll go check it out, and I'll let you know. And then Harry and Sarah are like, well, we're going to come with you. And Sarah puts on an adorable raincoat combo, and is like, prepare for anything, I guess. So she's wearing like a raincoat outfit. It's really adorable.
And Harry finally gets some shoes.
Right? Yeah.
It all worked out.
He looks like a British Navy man on shore leave. And then the doctor's like, here, have some jelly babies, and throws the bag of jelly babies to Vera, and then they teleport to Earth.
And she's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for these jelly babies.
Yeah. never questioning where they came from. And they teleport down to Earth for what will be our next story of this for the Fourth Doctor. So I love this. I love this story, and I love knowing how much it inspired Ridley Scott and Alien, and that whole franchise. I love
that whole genre. Really.
Yeah, really, yeah. It really just seems like Ridley Scott watched this as a young man, and was just like, man, this is really great. But
what if nihilism?
Yeah, what if nihilism, and what if a multi-million-dollar budget, and so then 4 years later he makes Alien.
It's so different from Ark in Space that it doesn't feel like derivative. You don't feel like, oh, he just ripped off Ark in Space. It does feel like a very loving tribute to something, but it's different enough to where it doesn't, knowing
Right.
Ark in Space doesn't take away from Alien at all.
Well, and it
When
and
I
it
heard you guys
started-
talking about it last episode, I mean, I knew about the Liz Shaw connection in Prometheus and Third Doctor, but I hadn't heard about the Ark in Space Alien connection.
Mhm.
So that was
Yeah.
that was news to me.
The first draft of Alien was, basically a remake of Ark in Space without the Doctor, interfering. So it's like if you removed the Doctor out of the story and everybody just sort of woke up naturally, like that was the plot. And eventually that got whittled down through the drafts to what we got, which was space truckers.
Mhm.
Getting into hijinks. And,
There's this movie coming out in December that I'm really excited about called Passengers. It's directed by Morton Tylan, the guy that directed.
Oh, that's coming out this year? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, dude, and it's and I thought about it a lot watching this because it's about a group of humans are being cryogenically frozen on their way to our new home essentially, and a character played by Chris Pratt wakes up accidentally 1,000 years too early, and he can't go back to sleep because of the machine, and so rather than die alone, he decides to be selfish and he wakes up a woman on the crew that's played by Jennifer Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
And so the movie is just going to be Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt on a spaceship by themselves.
What? Awesome.
Yeah. And so watching this, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of get that kind of vibe. I hope they have disco uniforms.
That script was on the blacklist a few years ago too, so it's good. I really love this story, and I think it really, we got to say goodbye to the unit era with Robot, and I love that story a lot.
No, we all love Robot.
Right, but this is the Tom Baker era now. We're in the Tom Baker era, and we're specifically in the Hinchcliffe Holmes era, and it is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this story. This is probably my fourth or fifth time watching Ark in Space, and this is the first time that I've ever actually picked up on the fact that that the Ark in Space is meaning Noah's Ark in space.
Oh my god!
Oh really?
Yeah, this is the first time I picked up on that, because I don't think I've ever really paid attention to the details. I was just kind of absorbing it before. Sure.
But his name is Noah.
Yeah, it never clicked for me. I don't know why.
They almost actually said it too.
Yeah, I know, but they never did, and
That's so
didn't spell out for me.
That's fine. That happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was always, every time I watched this, I was like, but I don't get it. It's not shaped like an ark. What are they talking about? I don't know.
They're referring to Harry's ark as a character.
Yeah. So anyway, really, really great story. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Sure. My pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. We'll be back. Next week with the Fifth Doctor's second story, which I'm just realizing I didn't write into the notes. And
4 from Doomsday.
What is it?
4 from Doomsday.
Oh, that's right. Four
more
from
spaceships.
Doomsday,
Yeah.
And green bubble wrap. Well, not quite.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that next week. So that'll be exciting, and then we'll get some fun 6th and 7th Doctor stories, and start covering the 8th Doctor's the Charlie era for the 8th Doctor.
I'm
pumped. Yeah. With Storm Warning, and then we'll go back into New Who with 9th, 10th, and 11th, and then start the whole process over again. So, lots of really good stuff coming up to look forward to that I'm really excited to talk about. For to Doomsday next week. In the meantime, you can go to our website, duelinggenre.com, where you can leave comments to this episode and what have you. You can also email the show, contact@thedoctorscompanion.us. And we're also on Twitter and Tumblr and Facebook. Leave us iTunes reviews. We haven't gotten any new ones in a really long time. So if you guys like the new version of the show, we'd appreciate a fresh iTunes review. That'd be really great. Go check out our other podcast, Back to the Future Minute, which we're now an hour into, which is pretty cool. Over an hour, I think, as of this release. So that's pretty cool. We're over an hour into Back to the Future Part 2. Very much looking forward to our hiatus before Part 3. So we got that going on. And then, of course, Geek by Night, which will have come back this week. So go check that out as well.
Congratulations, Cassandra.
Oh, yeah. Your next directorial episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're like, why?
I was like, what? What did I do?
Yeah, you wrote and directed the episode. So, there's that.
Yeah. Stuff.
I know. It seems like 1,000 years ago, but
it really does.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's coming back. I believe that's, what is that, episode 9, I think?
Yes.
Episode 9. So that should just
story 5.
Yeah. So go check that out. And then go check out our Patreon page, duelinggenre.com/support, where you can also guest on the show. You can win a chance to guest on the show, much like Mike Jacobs here. So go to our Patreon page and go check out the rewards there. And who knows, you could be on this show too. And I don't know if we've mentioned it on this show yet or not. Have we the merch page? But yeah, we have a Doctor's Companion T-shirt and mugs and stuff that you can go check out. duelinggenre.com/merch. There's a merch button on the website, so go check that out. And of course, special thanks to our Patreon associate producers David Jeffries and Leaper182. And thank you again, Mike, for continuing your support on Patreon. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be back next week before the Doomsday.